All right, boys and girls, we are on our last video lesson of the chapter. So if you guys could please open your notes packet to the back of the packet to 4-7, compare and ordering fractions. It's on that back side. So let's begin talking about how we're going to compare and order fractions. Now some of you guys might already know how to do this in a different way from last year, and that's fine to use that. But for right now, I'm going to teach you 3 ways that we're going to talk about in class. So when we do this, how do you tell which fraction is larger? Sometimes people look at pictures, but unless you're really precisely able to draw things like fifths and sevenths and tenths, we probably really aren't going to use the picture method that much. A lot of times we can compare them to 1/2, which is kind of a nice little shortcut method that I'll show you. We can change our fractions into decimals, and we could also find common denominators. Let's start by talking about common denominators right now. So that should be number 1 on your paper. Now you don't need to write down the steps, you just need to write down the example with me. So let's on our paper right now, let's write down 4/5 and 5/8. So let's write that down underneath number 1 on your notes packet. So what we could do is we could decide on a denominator that both fractions can share. So what denominator can I change both 5 and 8 into? Well, I know both 5 and 8 can be turned into 40s. So I want to make my common denominator 40. So let's write an empty fraction on top and 40 on the bottom right below the 4/5 and the 5/8. So what I need to do is I need to figure out, well, how am I going to turn a 5 into a 40? Well, I know 5 times 8 is 40, so I'm going to multiply that times 8. Whenever I do the bottom of my fraction, I also have to do the top of my fraction, so I'm going to multiply the top of it by 8 as well. So I get 4/5 is equivalent to 32 over 40. I hope you just copied down that with me, wrote down the times 8 and the 32 over 40. Now let's look at 5/8. I need to change that into 40ths as well because I need my denominators to be the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply 8 times 5 to get 40, and since I multiplied the bottom by 5, I should also multiply the top by 5. So I'm going to get 25 over 40. Once my denominators are the same, I'm able to now just compare the numerators to decide which fraction is larger. Well, 32 is bigger than 25, so I'm going to say that 32 over 40 is bigger than 25 over 40, which means 4/5 is bigger than 5/8. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change them both to have the same denominator. So I'm going to find 2 equivalent fractions and then be able to compare them once the denominators are the same. Let's take another look at that. So if I have 1/2 and I have 3/5, I need to again figure out what's the denominator both of them can be changed into. I know that 2 and 5 are both factors of 10. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my 2 into a 10, and I'm going to change my 5 into a 10. Well, how do I change a 2 into a 10? I multiply by 5. Since I multiply the bottom by 5, I'm going to also multiply the top by 5. So I get 1/2 is the same thing as 5/10. Well, over on my right other side, if I did 5 times 2 to get 10, I'm going to do times 2 on the top as well. So I'm going to get 6/10. So now I have 5/10, 6/10. Remember, when the denominators are the same, the fraction with the larger numerator is the larger fraction, which would mean I would get that 5/10 is less than 6/10. Remember, the opening always is going to point towards the bigger fraction, which would then mean 1/2 is less than 3/5. Let's think about another method now as well. Sometimes I can compare to 1/2. So this is number 2 on our notes packet right now. So number 2 is comparing to 1/2. So if I have 5/6, let's write that one down, and let's write down 3/8. Well, I know that 5/6 is greater than 1/2, and I know that 3/8 is less than 1/2. Okay, I know 5/6 is greater than 1/2 because if I were to quickly draw a picture, very sloppily of this, I know, but if I were to have 5 out of 6 of this, you could tell that I have more than half of that pizza. However, if I had a pizza that was in 8 slices and I only had 3 of them, well, then I have less than 1/2. Since this one over here, the 5/6 is bigger than 1/2, I know that one has to be bigger than the one that is less than 1/2. So sometimes I don't even have to do anything except just look at the fractions to be able to tell which one's bigger. So 5/6 would be greater than 3/8. Lastly, we are going to also be able to convert fractions to decimals. Remember, we've gone over many times that these lines in the middle of the fractions splitting up the numerator and denominator are actually also division signs. So for number 3, convert fractions to decimals, let's write down 4/5 and 7/8 underneath number 3. Now, I didn't put my calculator up this time. I just did the calculator work ahead of time on my own calculator, so you're not going to see me doing the division. But if I were to do 4 divided by 5 on a calculator, I would get that 4/5 is equivalent to 0.8. So 8/10 is what 4/5 is equivalent to. If I were to do 7 divided by 8 on a calculator, I would get 0.875. From here, I now need to use my skills of comparing decimals. Remember, you could always add extra zeros behind numbers, behind the decimal point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2 zeros behind it. So now they both end in my thousandths place. So now when I look behind the decimal, I have 800 on this side. Oh, as I move things around instead of just writing it. So now I have 800 behind the decimal. And this one I have 875. So because I know 875 is bigger than 800, I would now know that 7/8 is going to be the larger fraction. So I would say that 4/5 is less than 7/8. We will practice this a lot in class tomorrow and keep reviewing this. So hope you understood that. Have a great